Today's guest transformed a small family-run operation into a business bringing 8 figures in annual revenue.
This is just who we are, and it's just what people do here. It's very authentic, and that's what's resonated the most with our customers.
He's constantly breaking growth records, with sales up over 350% last year.
And we're coming up on their heels. I think we'll probably pass them within 2 years as far as just overall gross sales.
And there's no sign things are about to cool down.
We had to build our own factory from the ground up.
Chris Lang, founder of Fresh Chili Co., is having a year to remember.
And so that's when I knew we had something. We were talking about chili and salsa and recipes in a way that none of these big brands were doing.
Their award-winning Hatch Chili Salsa recipe is a hit all over the world.
It's just recipes from our home. So the mission of sharing your favorite recipes with your family and friends, that's where it really came from.
And Chris and his team are making serious profit despite the challenges of running a consumable product brand.
Fresh Chili took 5 to 6 years to become profitable. Business is hard.
Join us as we explore his tough personal journey, how he helps run this incredible business.
There were a lot of lessons as I look back that really kind of set me up to have an entrepreneur kind of mindset.
How community engagement transformed the brand, and so much more.
It's not the Fresh Chili story, it's their story as well.
Hey Chris, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you getting up early and jumping on with me before you start the day of work.
Oh, good morning. Yeah, thank you so much. This is gonna be a fun time together.
I want to kind of kick off on a personal note here, because I know your personal journey from when we spoke previously. I thought it was incredibly inspiring. So I know you had a challenging upbringing. And you're also now running multiple successful businesses. Can you just take the audience through your journey and how some of those early experiences shaped what you're doing today and kind of how you look at things?
Yeah, definitely. When I kind of look back at my childhood, it was very traumatic, and it was full of experiences that would teach me what I'm doing today. There were a lot of lessons as I look back that really kind of set me up to have an entrepreneur kind of mindset. And I think the risk that also goes involved with being an entrepreneur. And grew up in extreme poverty, no running water, no electricity, and in Oklahoma. And my stepdad was part of the Cherokee Nation, which was a Native American tribe that was pushed to this Indian territory. And it was definitely a hard living, but we got very creative. I remember my mother going into the creeks and getting this, it's called watercress that would grow on top of creeks. And we would we'd go to grocery stores and we would take the bags off where you get the fruits and vegetables, and we would go fill that up full of watercress. And then we would go back and sell it to the grocery store. And, just several different instances where we learned to kind of get creative, even though we didn't have a lot. That really kind of stayed with me. And then also kind of growing up Cherokee, I learned to read, write, and speak the language. And so there was this opportunity for me to really understand storytelling and how important it is to a group of people. And also just that it really kind of showed me that we all have a story, and it's important that we all learn how to tell our story, and to, what does that mean for us? But also later in life, as I kind of got older, you have to mature, and you have to take responsibility, and you got to move forward. So that's kind of really shaped, a lot of I think, just my worldview. Is I didn't grow up like most Americans. It felt very much like growing up in a third world country here in America. And so that's, I think, really kind of shaped and inspired me to kind of help tell other people's stories.
I think from my experience, there's kind of 2 ways a tough upbringing kind of turns out. One, kind of people, go down a certain route, drugs, alcohol, etc. Your journey seems like a lot of kind of healing and trying to be a better version of yourself. Is that kind of fair to say? And was that a difficult decision to make?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, where I grew up was, extreme abuse and, drugs, alcohol. It was very prevalent. It wasn't uncommon for people that to pass away, due to unforeseen circumstances. And, I think too, just it was like, hey, I want to do a complete 180 of what this, lifestyle looks like. I knew that I had to get out of it. And, but also, I really valued family. The opportunity to find the woman of my life and to have children has brought me a lot of joy that I never even thought was possible. So it has, you're right. It's been about healing. It's also been that I'm very grateful for that opportunity now. I used to be very angry at that opportunity, and now I'm extremely grateful because it's given me a worldview that I don't think most people have, and it's really kind of shaped the way that I even give back. For example, in my second company, which was actually my first Shopify brand, we would donate a meal back to the public schools with every purchase. And in 2020, we paid off the debt for all the families on a reduced lunch program here in Las Cruces. And so that was very much like a healing moment to be able to give back in that way. And it was because of what I've gone through, and that kind of spearheaded that. And so it's taught me how to build community as well.
Okay, I like that. You talked there about kind of, previously being angry.
Hmm.
Was there a specific moment where you kind of shifted that mindset into your kind of point of view today?
Yeah, it was a series of moments. I think one defining moment was finally going to therapy. My wife and I had just kind of finished up an argument, and there was this self realization of, oh, there's so much that I carry over just smiling from my childhood into like my marriage and as an adult man that I didn't realize. I thought I was doing a complete 180, and here I am still carrying, um, these very self-defeating comes to mind, but very just not healthy relationship, you know, habits. And so going to therapy was very beneficial because it really opened up my eyes and it gave me a chance to really kind of talk to someone too, because what I went through was very traumatic. I've seen a lot of different things that, most people, you know, a child should really never see. And so I was able to kind of process that, and that was kind of one of the first steps. The other thing too is a lot of people get in a relationship and think like, oh, my significant other is going to be my savior, and they're not. That's not their responsibility. Uh, so uh, definitely a self discovery in a lot of ways.
Okay. And I know now you're kind of pretty open and you kind of share this journey that you've been on, obviously outside of
Hmm.
the business success as well that you talk through.
Hmm.
Is that kind of part of your therapy, or is that just kind of showing to other people, you can come from this and go here, and this is kind of the rough journey or what you should do to get there?
Yes, I felt very alone, in this world in a lot of ways. Felt like an outsider. Even though I was very, I get along with most people, right? Like very just kind of easygoing, and but still, like I didn't feel like I fit in, and it's because I kind of grew up in two different Americas, like I talked about. You kind of grow up in two different worlds, and you kind of experience things, and just and so I think as this world it feels like it's shrinking somewhat, as far as just the opportunity to connect with other like-minded people. And, I think, it's actually interesting you say that because there's someone, in the Shopify ecosystem, we met in San Diego, reconnected in Miami, and I think it was in Dallas, and he's like, hey, I really appreciate you opening up in Miami because I started to go to therapy as well, and it's been helpful. And it was something that I didn't think I could do. It's not really looked upon in my family or my circle where he lives in another part of the world. And he's like, but it has been helpful, and I appreciate you just being open about it. And so I think that's it, right? Like just letting other people know that it's okay, and it's a part of that process that you need to kind of heal.
For sure. Obviously, that as we've just talked about, you've been kind of showing that leadership on social media. How has this kind of journey that you've been on shaped how you approach leadership in the business and just generally with business?
Yes, you learn so many lessons, right? I mean, I actually learned leadership. I kind of wrote about this the other day, but I learned leadership when I first moved to where I live now, Las Cruces, New Mexico. And my wife was pregnant, I had to get a job at a furniture store delivering furniture for 5.15 an hour. And I was thrown in with a group of guys that, had just got out of prison, maybe couldn't read and write, very tough crowd. And here I was, like 25, 26, still not knowing what I'm going to do with my life and having to develop those leadership skills with a group of men that are very hard to lead. And, through that process, we actually became one of the top performing warehouses in North America for that furniture company. Not just America, but North America. Like the processes that we were doing and we were building upon and the culture, they actually had their presidents come and observe. And, but it was just, it was just something that, I think, when your back is against the wall, what's your true character? And I've had to kind of, display that several times and continue to do so because, it's just different levels in the business game, obviously. But I think it's just knowing your values, what you stand for. And, what's funny is like a lot of the same values that maybe you had when you first started off in your career, they sort of evolve and change as you get, but also like that foundation of just, knowing that you can be someone who's reliable, who's going to deliver, that speaks volumes. And, that's so much needed, in our in business. And so I think a lot of it just stems from just knowing, the type of person you want to be first and foremost. And I actually have another story about that, but we can get into that later.
But it sounds like you became the leader that maybe you didn't have growing up.
Yes, no, I mean, my stepfather was someone I was trying to, be the complete opposite, you know, in so many ways. And so my mother's voice is always, instilled in me. I always wanted to be a good boy for her, And in 2012, both my mother and my stepdad passed away within 7 days of each other. And so like in 2012, and I'm the only child, so it's like I kind of lost my entire family. That was like a very like I am on my own at this point as a man. There is none of that where I have not that I had a safety net. They both died with a negative bank account, but I was able to, you know, work, I guess, let go. I really had to like let go of everything in my past at that moment, even though that was still a process that would take, kind of years to still kind of work through. It was a defining moment where I had there was no excuses. You have to take full responsibility. Wife, I got two children at this point. I was actually that was starting my first company, which was a creative agency. It was 6 months into starting my first company when that happened. So that put a lot of that made it very black and white at that point that no one's going to come save you.
In many ways as well, was business like a savior for you because there is a lack of safety net of, running a business? Did that also kind of force you to kind of fix some of these things?
Yes, I mean, I think like I mean, just when you grow up, I mean, with not a lot of material things, you kind of constantly like what's the next roof over my head. I think it set me up for entrepreneurship. It gave me a lot more risk tolerance than my wife was accustomed to, and because. I mean, I'm really thankful she supported me. I mean, truly, even when other people were doubting me. And because it was very scary for her family, what I was doing, and especially with someone who was just basically living month to month, just trying to get the next client. So, it's, and just to build upon that has been something that, I would say kind of really set me up, maybe not for success early on, but allowed me to at least kind of see that I can do this.
Did you struggle with that, especially at the start when you haven't had much by way of business success, but did you struggle with kind of self-belief and self-doubt?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like I've been a very insecure person. I would actually say it's only within the last year that I'm starting to feel more comfortable like in who I am and what I do. I think I've constantly had just always had to prove myself every step of the way. And that's kind of where that kind of the champion that idea of tell your story, because if you don't tell your story, no one else is going to do it for you. So I had to really develop, you know, my why or like my philosophy for business. Even early on, I remember, in the creative agency, I kind of recognized there's three C's to be really kind of successful. And the first is consistency, the second one is communication, and the third one is creativity. Now, you can dovetail off each of these, but like truly, I believe like these are the three pillars that when you look at very successful people, that's what they kind of have. And so I kind of use that internally to understand like I got to show up every day. I got to communicate, the message, and, I got to do it, and not in an artsy way, but a creative way in the sense of outside the box. And so this actually kind of came, and dealing with clients too. I think it teaches you a lot because you have to take their vision and you got to run with it, and you got to help tell their story. But also as marketers, we also know like sometimes that's not the best story for them, and so like we kind of want to A/B test some things, and so I think that's kind of what led to starting my first Shopify brand, was sort of doubling down on those convictions that I kind of had for a business.
Okay. Before we kind of move on and go into some of that business stuff, my final
Yeah,
question on this side of things is, in terms of, maybe younger founders with a similar background or,
yeah.
yeah, something like that, what advice would you give them to overcome or to navigate some of the emotional side of what you went through and what a lot of entrepreneurs face?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. I'm just trying to think of how to break it down. I think one is it's okay to seek help. A lot of that help is not your family and friends. I mean, it's very natural to turn to them, but they're not always going to understand or process it in the way that you need it processed. And so I think, finding outside help is okay and it's good. I think, and, some other things that have really helped me, especially within the last few years, because like I said, this has been a journey. But things that I'm like knowing that I got to do now is like, you know, I got to wake up and I have to be grateful. And this isn't something where I'm trying to do like cold plunge, sauna, whatever it is, right? But just there is that moment of like gratitude that I really do think sets you up in your heart to view the world in a way that is different than what most people are viewing the world when they wake up. They're kind of like me, 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 me. When you kind of approach it from a more empathetic view and also grateful in the sense that you're not comparing yourself to anyone else, like this is your journey. Like I love when people are doing well on X or Instagram and LinkedIn, because that's their journey. That's awesome. And again, these posts don't tell the entire story behind the scenes. Fresh chili took 5 to 6 years to become profitable. Like, business is hard. I think another thing is just, I have found so much solace in just walking every day. Like I find a 30-minute walk is just kind of clearing that head space and allowing you to kind of work through your problems. And so, I guess to kind of sum it up is don't be afraid to talk to someone, and, be grateful for the moment, but also take time for yourself. And that's really where I'm at today, is like, I used to design my life around business, and now I'm starting to design my life around walking, swimming, working out, kind of making sure that I have time for myself so that I can be a better husband, father, and leader at the end of the day.
That's interesting. So the positive inputs are mental and physical health for
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
And then the output or the intermediary step is then kind of building the business or looking after the family.
Hmm.
And it kind of
Hmm.
flows from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I definitely see like I've been in business since 2011. So I really see kind of the next 15 years being hopefully completely different than the first 15 years. I've actually kind of look at this last year and be like, okay, these are all the mistakes that you've made. These are the mistakes that you can consistently make over and over. And then hopefully you can move forward with this knowledge kind of going forward, because again, it's hard to find good mentors in a lot of ways, and that, but sometimes a mentor is not going to solve all your problems either, and that's why it's really important to be able to solve problems on your own.
Can we talk about that? Because you said before, sometimes your family, friends, etc., are not going to understand.
Hmm.
Certainly, if they don't run businesses, they're not going to be able to help.
Mm.
Where have you gone to and where have you found good mentors or people to talk to and kind of get advice from?
Yeah, so it's definitely been at different stages, right? I mean, when I was working at the furniture store, there was sort of this, one of the owners that, was kind of like the owner's son, and he wasn't like a mentor, but he at least shared his worldview with me, which I thought was interesting. I didn't have to take it, but it was like interesting to see, hey, they run this business, they own this business, this is how they think. And so everyone has something, everyone in your life kind of has something to kind of give you. My father-in-law was also very helpful as well. He also was a business owner, my wife's father. And so again, it's not like he took me under his wing and like, hey son, this is how you do things, but it was like just observing, right? And just kind of seeing how he kind of ran things and did things. And, he passed away of cancer, 5 years later after my parents passed away. And so again, that lesson of like, it's all on you, right? There's no one here to save you. You have to take care of your family, right? And so, and then as I kind of got into, having success with my first Shopify brand, then that kind of led me to my business partner I have now with the chili company and the winery. But then, he was able to teach things as well to me. But he's been a successful business owner for the last 40 years here in this town. But then I think what's really kind of helped me get to the next level is finding my tribe. And so I remember going to my first Geek Out event in 21, yeah, in San Diego, and so like, Shaq and Chase and I mean, everyone was there, it seemed like, and then kind of going to these different meetups, commerce roundtable, and then just really connecting with other entrepreneurs. And it really kind of like, there's a community here that I didn't have before. And so it's just been very inspiring to jump on Zoom calls and to, just, I think, share the story publicly. I think one thing I didn't really see when I started sharing kind of really the raw numbers behind Fresh Chili, I did it because we were tanking. Like I mean, Meta was felt broken. It was last January and it was like, this had this weird update in February, January. And I was like, I need help. And so I wasn't doing it to flex. I was doing it to be like, I need help here. And so that really kind of brought some great people into my life who I call friends today who just genuinely wanted to help. And then also there's been investors who are having talks with me and conversations with me and uh and so and then also too just wanted to, I mean, this past potential investor asked me to speak at a conference last year for his mastermind group and was very open to mentoring me. And so I don't know what that looks like. He's one of the most successful Shopify entrepreneurs in this space, and so that's pretty amazing. And so I think every point's a level, but you're constantly observing. And I even remember being at that first Geek Out, just watching how everyone interacted with each other, how they move, if they drink or don't drink, just all the little things that kind of add up. Like, what does it take to be truly successful and get to that next level that we're all trying to achieve?
Okay. So would you kind of say that, your personal brand and putting your stuff out there and also physically putting yourself out there at these events, was that like a turning point for you almost?
Yeah, it was a turning point. I mean, putting myself out there, was something I had to kind of overcome, because you go to these events and you hear these numbers, you got guys who are doing like 10, 50, 100 million, and you just feel so incompetent, like so insecure, like what do I have to offer to these guys, right? But, and I don't know, like, I felt like I took that moment to be like, okay, you have one chance here. You can kind of lay it all out on the line, right? Or you can, go back and you can go back to a world of a very hard struggle, not knowing how to grow your business and not knowing how to get to that next level. And that was something I couldn't live with. And so, when I get in a room with those guys, um, you know, I'm very outgoing, very extroverted. The reality of it is when I come back home, um, I mean, it's just family, and I go to my studio. I interact with one or two people, on a daily basis. I'm not very extroverted necessarily, but it's good to put yourself out there because it allows you to be taught, and it allows you to learn, which is ultimately what I think. I just have like this nonstop learning. Like I love this. I love what we do, and it's pretty inspiring. So I'm always trying to absorb as much knowledge as I can. And these guys, I mean, they're happy to share the information with you. So it's been great.
So this kind of journey that you're on, it seems like personal development is
Mhm.
at the center of a lot of it. Is that fair?
It is. That's why you know, I wanted to help give back and, kind of in a capacity where taking what I'm learning and sharing it. And so there's a couple guys that I mentor now. We haven't met in real life, just Twitter, LinkedIn, but I see their journey. It's really similar to me, but maybe they're 10 years younger than I am. And just jumping on Zoom calls and just being like, hey, man, let's talk through it. But, when I talk to them, I'm not necessarily talking about uh, their business. I'm talking about what they're going through personally and their family, because I find that's really the catalyst for, like, your business. A lot of times they think it's like another hack or another app or another automation. It's going to save the day. And really it's like our personal lives. And so I actually had someone on X, they DM'd me, and they were actually locally. And so, hey, need help with my business. I was like, okay. So he comes over to my studio, and I'm like, all right, you know, but how are you doing? I know I caught him off guard. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I can solve your marketing problems. Like, marketing is not the issue. Like, if you want your business to grow, we got that. But how are you? And come to find out, like, there's all this internal struggle within the business, which, my partner, he's a coach trainer for our coaching company. And so I connected them. We did on-site training for 2 days with their staff and team where we interviewed the entire team. And that just really opened my eyes because I've also been running businesses. I mean, I've had a coffee shop, I've had a restaurant, I've had a clothing store, growing the chili company factory. I've learned that a lot of it's internal, and then there's the deeper level too, is like, are you taking care of yourself? How's your fitness? How's your health, and is things in balance and your life. And so that's, I think, just going through everything I've gone through is just really shown me that it's not just a marketing issue, but it's more of a holistic issue.
So I view business or a business as like a living, breathing entity. And I think at the kind of smaller end, not this like $1 billion level, but at the
Right.
smaller end, it's a reflection of the founder. So if there's chaos in the business, there's probably chaos in the founder's life, right? And
Right.
every time I've looked at my business and there's been issues,
Hmm.
normally if you take it back, the issue is what with my personal life. So I certainly agree with what you said from personal experience.
Oh man, like, speaking to that, so I have this apparel shop, and it's a retail store too. And so, like, man, you hit it on the head. I mean, you can walk into that store, and if it's full and got every size and all the colors, and everything is merchandised correctly, man, you probably know that I'm doing pretty well. But when that store, like, is running out of stock, and, like, if you don't pay attention to your businesses, it shows. And some are a little bit more visual than others, but it's so true. And so, and I think too, like, spreading yourself too thin, you got to be careful. And so that's something I've also been learning as well.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks they're Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, and
I want to come back to this and talk about, yeah, kind of the different ventures and stuff you've got. But just finishing off on in terms of the personal brand stuff, you are, I don't think blunt is the right word. I think it's more kind of open. So you
hmm
share a lot of stuff, positives, negatives, like you said. And there's a
hmm
lot of kind of detail there as well about the business.
hmm
I know you've got a background in, the organic social side. What
hmm
gave you the confidence to be so open about stuff that, on the business side could be construed as helping other people kind of in
Mm-hmm.
competition with you even? And
Mm-hmm.
two, how did you find your kind of voice to project that internal feeling out to the world and feel comfortable sharing it?
Yeah, great question. I guess to kind of back into that, I've always wanted to be a writer. I would say that's sort of, I guess, one of my goals. I haven't really completely leaned into it, but I have been sort of leaning into it within the last year. So I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to help people, and I think that's just who I've been. Like if when my wife and I met, I was writing poetry and like wanted to be a writer. So you can imagine the in-laws being like, "Who's this guy?" Right? It's always been there. And that voice inside, and so, but now going back to the confidence, I just kind of saw, you know, a lot of people on X and LinkedIn that I was like, you kind of get these people who are like sort of, uh, screenshotting it, looks like they're crushing it. But I wanted to take people like, no, there's a lot more behind the
Yeah,
scenes here. And so, um, and I think just the confidence that going back to that, it's just, I've been doing this since 2011, but I've also done it. I mean, it was creative agency, apparel, food factory, restaurant, winery, and so, and I've also worked with like Virgin Galactic, I've worked with ESPN, Discovery Channel. So I felt like I had the knowledge and the understanding and also skin in the game to actually give me confidence to say what I speak. I mean, when you're losing 40,000 a month, I think you have something to say, you can kind of talk about it, because if anyone wants to call you on it, it's like, hey, because even though like building in public, I've been building in public in my hometown since 2011. Apparel brand started in the garage, was at the farmer's market, find me there every Saturday, shaking hands. When the restaurant closed, newspaper writes an article about it. You got to give a quote. All these things, I mean, and so I just knew that, like, okay, if I could build in public in my own hometown, where like I know the worst they can say about me is failed restaurant coffee shop owner, like I was like, okay, like, I'm happy to kind of share hopefully what I know. And it's been nice because um I also see it where we're constantly learning from people ahead of us, but this is also an opportunity to share with people who are coming up, behind us. Some of those are going to pass us. Some of those are going to kind of, just gradually get there. But, I think it's important that we all kind of do it in our own way. I mean, just like you're doing with the podcast, right? So, it's important that we do share all this information because I'm also finding that this this whole ecosystem, e-commerce, it's a very small circle. And so the more information we can share, the more that it benefits everyone.
for sure. I want to touch now on your business ventures. So you talked through some of them. You've
Hmm.
done a lot of different stuff, right? And I think,
Hmm.
I don't know if it's true as of today, but certainly,
Hmm.
over the past year, you've still got multiple things running at the same time.
Hmm.
Can you just talk to kind of what you've had going on and how
Yeah,
you
definitely.
balance the different points?
Yeah. So what's interesting is when you don't fail right away, you think you can kind of just do anything. So 2011, creative agency, an agency is kind of recession proof no matter what industry you're in a lot of ways. I didn't know that at the time, but I'm like, okay, I can make money at this. And then starting the apparel brand, it quickly became a seven-figure brand, kind of represent the Southwest here in America. And we opened a store in Albuquerque. So we had two stores open. We had mall kiosk, you know, we moved into a 5,000 square foot warehouse. Things seemed to be going well. I partnered up with Fresh Chili 19 and, um, 2020 hits, and that didn't have the negative effect on our businesses that it had for everyone else necessarily. The apparel brand grew fast, Fresh Chili grew fast, and my partner is like, "Hey, let's buy this winery together, and then also let's buy this restaurant and Airbnb." And we did all of that quickly.
Sorry,
20,
just on that, Chris, what was
yeah.
the kind of thought process behind like things are going really well, the rest of the country maybe isn't? Why do you
Mhm.
then diversify and kind of
Yeah, for me, I didn't know what I didn't know. And for him, this was an opportunity where, he found someone like me who was really good at marketing. So why not just diversify into other ventures that were sort of real estate? Because that's more of his zone of genius is real estate, right? So, but when it comes to, the real estate of a vineyard and Airbnb, yes, that can kind of make sense. But then you throw on the winery and restaurant on top of it and hospitality, and it's a whole nother beast, which we quickly started to lose money fast. Right. So, and that was a huge, huge lesson where, I remember one Sunday morning, I didn't go to church because our cook had called in, and I'm like back there in the kitchen making eggs and making breakfast for people. Like I'm in there. You just got to commit to it. And my wife was just telling me, she's like, I'm not leaving you, but you need to figure this out. So it's like, okay, it's like a big wake up call, So I'm like, okay. And so I went through this period where like I was so just completely spread so thin that on paper I had three businesses doing over seven figures but none of them were probably great. And then also too, like I was suffering so much as well and was gaining weight and just, not there mentally for my wife and for my children. I just kind of realized that I didn't know how it was going to stop. And it's only been within the last year that I'm starting to have clarity through it. But, it was one of those things where you just feel like you can't lose. And so you just do everything. And I think too, coming where I came from is like, I should say yes to a winery. I should say yes to real estate. I should say yes to all these opportunities because that's what everyone tells you to do is say yes and figure it out later. I actually realized,
Is that because of like scarcity of opportunity? You
yes,
just like seize onto every opportunity.
yes, exactly. Right. I mean, again, I was going to take advantage of every opportunity that came my way. And so, it's been this process where one of my partners in the winery is a winemaker. And he said something to me that really stuck with me. He was like, the winery is just an ego game, right? And it just hit me in a way that you probably don't think. It opened up my eyes to like everyone around me. It was an ego game, but for me, it wasn't, in a sense that like I was saying yes to an opportunity because of where my background had came from, and I just wanted to take advantage of it, you know. And so when I would happen to have that moment where, are you doing this for ego or are you doing this like this doesn't define me? This is not who I am. This is not going to be my ultimate success. And that really kind of opened up my eyes to a lot of the things that I was been building. And why am I here? And for some things it was ego. It was some of the other ventures I was a part of. And so kind of that, self journey again, as we kind of go back to that term, was sort of peeling back the layers of why I was doing these things. And kind of that scarcity mindset is correct. And also just the insecurity. But knowing now, like, if I stepped away from every business, you know, today, what would I do going forward? And so that's where it's kind of come full circle, with kind of rebuilding the agency and coaching and consulting kind of came about because that is something that I definitely see myself doing is helping other people. And I love that opportunity to help. I mean, there's nothing like, onboarding a client, and then be able to crush for them, or talking with a young entrepreneur who is, one conversation is like changes them, six figures and change in their business, right? So just knowing the value that, I can bring today that has kind of helped open my eyes in a lot of ways and kind of, why I was doing those things.
Okay. So I know you said that you've kind of stripped a lot of these ventures back or are in the
Hmm.
process of doing so.
Yeah.
So is it correct that kind of you were in a situation where, it was untenable from a bandwidth perspective? You
Hmm.
just got too much stuff going on, family life suffering, health
Hmm.
suffering.
Hmm.
So you kind of realize there's a problem because of that. Then you start to look at, why am I doing this stuff? Why is this happening?
Hmm.
Then you're like, next step is what businesses, like looking internally. Is there a kind of reason to run beyond money or kind of other esoteric kind of reasons? and then you've refocused based on the ones that are core and aligned with your principles. Is that kind of the process you've been going through the past few years?
Hmm. Yes, I again going back to that scarcity mindset, I kind of that realization where it's not all about money, but also it is about money. So I'll break it down in a way. You can have three businesses on paper doing over seven figures, but all three could be losing money. And we don't talk about this openly, right? Like, I got three businesses crushing, and it's like full stop. No. Like, so I knew that everything that was being achieved was just basically bad money and it wasn't good money. And also know that too, like I think people can be really good at two or three things. And I just knew that I had to get back at being really good, at two or three things, and to really, hone in on like my zone of genius, because even today I look at what I do and it is consistent across the board now. So if it's for the agency or for Fresh Chili or for apparel, at the moment I am focused on marketing. I'm focused on being a strategic, problem solving marketer who, is, and so no matter what business I'm looking in now, I'm not in the kitchen. I'm not making breakfast anymore. I'm not pouring glasses of wine on a Friday night with my son washing dishes, in the cellar, So it's like, you know, we're not doing those things anymore. We're not doing things that don't complement our skill set. And so going forward, I know the money will come in a good way, in a good direction. And so, because that's the other thing, when you have these businesses, they suck up all your cash, and especially like if you're not taking on any agency clients, there's no cash flow. Wineries, like they say the best way to make $1 million at a winery is to spend 5 million, right? So it's like fresh chili is also a very expensive business. It has a very high break even that I have to hit every month just for us to kind of pay our bills, right? A lot of these businesses can be very expensive when you're dealing with consumable products. And so if you don't balance that out with a cash flow business, it is something that, and again, as I know, I mean, you're on the brink of losing it all.
Okay. Another point I just want to kind of dig into there, and you touched on it previously on the winery, stepping outside of your kind of like industry of expertise
Mhm.
is hard. Do you think it's kind of something you should do, and would you recommend that to people, or would you say kind of stay in your lane?
That's a great question. I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you with the breadth and depth of knowledge that I have. As I kind of I'll look back at the last 5, 6 years of my life, kind of like what I'll look back at my childhood as a very defining moment that really like broke me, but also gave me a lot of clarity. And so I think financially, one of the mistakes I made was I kind of let go of my agency clients and I kind of went on all these businesses, and that kind of cash flow just dried up. And so I really had to depend on these other things, to pay my bills and to, also generate money to keep the businesses going. Very hard lessons. Again, it's given me a lot of insights, but, just advice I'd have is just, keep the cash flowing. And if there is something that you're very passionate about, because I do believe, like, especially like, and we're seeing this more and more where agency owners are starting their own brands. I think it's a good thing because you're doubling down on your convictions. But what I would say is try to stay in your lane of, of expertise, and really try to find people who complement everything you do. So even as I've like when I started to rebuild my agency to handle all my internal brands, you know, okay, this is the best graphic designer, this is the best growth marketer, best, I started to kind of fill in those pieces, whereas I used to kind of hold on to all those pieces and do them myself. And now, I really, just the way I'm going about it now is I'm trying to find people who have those skill sets. And so, and if I were to start something else again, I would find someone who has that skill set first. So, for example, when I started the coffee shop, I found the best coffee shop in Las Cruces and asked if he wanted to expand into this other location. So he had the coffee down, and that doesn't mean it's always going to work. So, yes, I did find someone whose zone of expertise was coffee, did it really well, understood the operations, and it was a great product. But what happened with that is that we just didn't really have a true operation manager, you know, or coffee shop manager who really shared the vision of both of us. And that's where it kind of failed. And so doesn't mean you're always going to have success when you find those people. But, if I was in there making lattes, it would have felt a lot faster, so and going back to that, even though, I mean, on paper, fresh chili shouldn't do what it's doing with my partner's eye background, right? But it's been able to work because we've tried to really find the right people because it's a very complex business with, manufacturing, shipping, logistics. I mean, you're dealing with food, so there's whole health regulations, environmental departments, a lot of nuances there. So we have to find people and whose expertise is those areas.
Okay. So just to confirm on that, so you've scaled back to, fresh chili
Yeah.
and the agency, and that's the main focus. And are you saying that you would recommend, partnerships outside of your kind of zone of expertise when you're looking at new stuff?
Yeah, I think partnerships are important. Not all are great. Where I'm at right now is the agency, the apparel brand, and then a fresh chili. But I'll say this that, because I just actually just officially exited the winery, in December.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I picked up my first check yesterday and I was like, this is
Nice.
awesome. So like finally I can kind of breathe a little bit. But it was one of those moments where, yeah, I have these three businesses, but also fresh chili and the apparel brand, like, I may sell or may exit one or the other in the next 3 to 5 years. Where I see myself is really hopefully going back to that kind of childhood dream of writing and helping people. But I know that like, I have a few ideas. I wouldn't say that those are, I think I still would start another business as well. It just has to be the right opportunity with the right people, so.
So does the agency exist to kind of serve the brands and also to provide cash flow? Is that the main goal?
Yes, it exists to help manage all the brands. And so like internally, it's a full stack marketing, with we're buying ads, we're doing emails, social media. But on the agency side, there's a lot of like other agencies who focus on customer acquisition or retention. And going forward, I was like, I don't really see a lot of people whose, you know, areas is really organic social. And that's something I believe in the most. Obviously I believe in paid ads and retention. Those are great for your LTV, but I just believe that you see more efficient paid ads and you really get people into that retention funnel through great organic social. So that's something that I have the most experience in. And I thought, well, this could be an area where I could really be the most helpful to people. And then also there's that, opportunity where you will have someone who wants to pick your brain, and that's great. And that's kind of where the coaching kind of came up with that, was just to give opportunities and structure for that information to be shared.
So the agency is kind of full stack, but the priority is organic content. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say it's full stack internally, but
Okay. So for your brand, it's full stack, but you sell the service of kind of organic.
yes, I mean that's again where we're focusing on.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. I want to shift gears now and talk about
Hmm.
fresh chili. Can you
Hmm.
just explain to the listeners what is the kind of mission of the business?
Yeah. The mission of the business is to bring family and friends together over their favorite recipes. So we live by Hatch, New Mexico. The farms are 30 minutes from us. It's the chili capital of the world. So like Napa is to wine in America, that's what, Hatch chili is. So, and a better way to kind of state what we do is salsa. I would say that's the most, you know, but really we kind of dialed into kind of the peppers and what we're known for here. And in this region, like the state of New Mexico has an official smell. I think we're the only state that have an official smell. And the official smell is the roasting of green chili. And that smell and that aroma is so intoxicating. You can smell it for miles, especially from our factory when we're roasting during harvest. And so, but there's a lot of mills. And also the state question is red or green, because every restaurant you go to, do you want red or green chili? And so it's just a big part of our culture, who we are, especially along the Southwest, kind of Texas through Southern California. You have that big Hispanic population that has influenced our culture and food. And so that's really what the company's about, is like there's so many childhood memories, or that of kind of this flavor of the Southwest, and we're trying to bring that to America. And so as we're doing that, I've kind of had to think of how to educate the American consumer who lives in the Northeast or Northwest. And so you know that's kind of where I came up with the tagline for what is Hatch Chili, and who is Fresh Chili, and why they become America's favorite salsa company. And that tagline is sort of like really helped us on the CRO side of our website, but also just it's just really helpful for anyone who wants to know. And so we really go into depth on education on the website, as far as like the origins, and then also there's just tons of recipes that you could do. It's also the most versatile that you can use in your cuisine. It goes with Italian, it goes with Asian, it goes great on cheeseburgers. And so that's something where I think we have a market position over the next 10 to 20 years, is that America's palates are becoming spicier. And so I would say, like, if there was a competition, it would be with tomatoes, because tomatoes are really kind of used in kind of most Western cuisine, where this is kind of a little bit more flavorful and spicier. We control the heat levels: mild, medium, hot, extra hot. So, the mild is really just about flavor, and it's great. But if you want flavor and spice, we have that too. And so, um, it's been cool, because when Facebook had its insights where you could put other brands and you could track engagement versus those other brands. I had Heinz, French's, Tabasco, Truff, Tostitos, and our Facebook engagement was higher than all those other brands combined. And so that's when I knew we had something. We were talking about chili and salsa and recipes in a way that none of these big brands were doing, and still are to this day. They don't have the influence that we have on Facebook. And I remember the largest competitor in the space, they're not DTC, they're retail, but they are the largest in the space. And we're coming up on their heels. I think we'll probably pass them within 2 years as far as just overall gross sales. But they sat down with me one day, and it's a small community. It was at a football game, actually, because it's a small community, and we were just kind of talking, and they're like, I mean, how do you develop your recipes? We work with a team of food scientists in Denver to come up with these recipes, and I'm like, dude, we're just cooking at home, bro. Like, we're this is it's just recipes from our home. From, like I said, so the mission of sharing your favorite recipes with your fans, family and friends. That's where it really came from. Is like, this is just who we are, and it's just what people do here. It's very authentic, and that's what's resonated the most with our customers.
Nice. Okay. In terms of business structure, so you obviously have this, marketing engine that you've kind of built yourself. Is the rest of the business vertically integrated, or what's the kind of setup like?
Yes. So the way that it 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 kind of started off. So my partner was making this product at his home kitchen with his wife, and they were doing it for his real estate clients, kind of around Christmas time. And when I kind of paid off the debt for all the families on the student lunch program, newspapers, TV, magazine articles, they kind of found out about me, reached out to me, and was like, hey, we're making this product. Can you, put this online for us? And I was like, sure. So, like, again, they're still working out of their home, but they have Facebook, they have a Wix website. And so it was like, so I quickly converted everything to Shopify, got rid of the Wix, and was like, okay, great, we're kind of ready to kind of start selling. And we just started kind of, with paid acquisition. And then we're on Klaviyo for email marketing. And the person who was going to make this product for us, this manufacturer, is like, we can't make it for you. You guys are selling too much and we can't keep up with it. You're going to have to figure something else out. So that was right before season started and kind of in the spring. And chili season goes from July to November or October. And we had to build our own factory from the ground up. So there was this old supermarket. We took over the back part of the loading dock with the kitchen, 9,000 square feet. He worked on the kitchen. I worked on the warehouse because I had that, furniture experience. And I set up all the shipping, and we were building a factory in the middle of the season. And we opened October 1st. And I mean, we had to work so fast because the fire department told us we couldn't do something. The environmental department told us we couldn't do something. We had to find solutions quick and fast and in a hurry. We built our own manufacturing, facility within 6 months, and then we just kind of start selling, online in 2019, and then 2020 hits, and it's just like boom. And so um through that, I was handling all the marketing, myself, just still kind of handling all the creative, all the videos, and just kind of a Swiss Army knife to kind of get going. And then that's kind of when that Apple iPhone, meta update happened in around 21. That's when I started looking for answers, and I went to the Geek Out event in San Diego to try to find those answers. And then now it's kind of evolved where I've been building out internally out of my own pocket, not out of Fresh Chili's pocket, but out of my own pocket, the agency side, where I have help now, for video, for graphic design, for the social media, for emails and social media management. And so that's kind of like, the kind of the layout. And then manufacturing, we're having trouble with shipping. Today we're still 3,000 orders behind if I were to log on to ShipStation, so we had a big December. We're still behind, and I'm looking at outsourcing to a 3PL now, going back and forth on costs right now. And so it's evolving where like we're most likely going to end up just being a manufacturer, which is great. But if you were to look at the business, yes, there's a marketing department, a customer service department that is so vital to everything we do. I mean, really, like, they are the true, saints. And, then you manufacturing, I mean, and I think that's where we're going to end up. I think we have to move to a 3PL. I don't think we can handle our own logistics. There's just a level of a 3PL is never going to run out of materials, pulp, tape, labor, those types of things. And those are all challenges that we face. So I think payroll for a shipping department last month was $48,000. I mean, a lot of overtime. So that's just, kind of how the business kind of looks today. And
Okay.
I think where
Could
we
we
have to move
talk
to.
through kind of the marketing over
Mm.
the period? So like what's driven the growth, and maybe if we can
Yeah.
touch on some numbers at each level as well.
Yes. So when I kind of got us up and running, they had a Facebook page, but I was like, I hear a lot of good things about Facebook groups, but let's do this. And so we started a Facebook group, and it's actually a private group. It's not a public one. If it was public, we'd probably have like 500,000 people in there, but it's not public, it's private. And we have 30,000 people in there who are creating content for us every single day. It's just user generated content nonstop. One of the ways that oh, it's a blessing and a curse when you have a founder led brand, right? And so I really kind of made my partner like the hero of the brand and tell his story, his family story. And that's good. But I've changed my view on this a little bit, where I think the ultimate end goal is to make our customer the hero. So how did we do this, right? This is one of my favorite things, so I'm going to geek out over for just a minute. So start this Facebook group where people are sharing their favorite recipes and creating content, and then we started doing a weekly giveaway contest. So whoever has the best recipe based on likes, moderators, we'll send them a 6-pack of chili. So good, and so like they start getting recognized. Oh, this is, so when they're around the dinner table with their family and friends, they're like, did you know that my recipe was featured with Fresh Chili Company? And that's good. That's one way to make them the hero. So what we started doing is making sure every touch point let people know about our Facebook group. If you go to our homepage on our website, we'll link you to the Facebook group. If you're signed up for emails or automations, we will recommend our Facebook group several times to you. If you buy from us, there is a handwritten, or not handwritten, there's a note in there, a thank you note, also with a link to join the Facebook group. Within 30 days, we used Postpilot to do these handwritten notes from the founder, again, talking about the Facebook group. This helps our LTV so much. And so the cherry on top here is after a year, we had 52 winners. And we took those 52 winners and we created a cookbook for them. And now they are immortalized in our Fresh Chili cookbook. And so I think we're going to be on version 3. And just, I'm really excited about this just because I think this is one of the coolest case studies that a brand could do is you get them in the funnel with your initial story, brand story, whatever that is. But to be able to make it the customer story at the end of the day is, I think, one of our greatest accomplishments, and reason why the word of mouth of us is so big, why the loyalty is so big, is because it's not the Fresh Chili story, it's their story as well. And they're a part of that story. And so to me, that's sort of that full circle gratification. And I think as we're looking at the flywheel, why did PayPal grow so fast? Well, I think they gave away $10 with every referral, $20 with every referral. Amazing, right? I mean, that's just, and so like, how can we kind of create that referral network effect within ourselves? And we can't just give away cash, but we can make them part of the story. And that's what we've kind of done. And so I just find that fascinating. And so as I look at other businesses, I try to think through that model. Not all businesses have that. I know that. But I do try to think, is there an end game where this can end up being the customer story as well?
Okay, that is an insane like community building initiative.
Hmm.
Very smart,
Hmm.
very cool. Are there
Hmm.
any other initiatives that you've done, not like that, but that have had a
Yeah.
similar kind of impact on the business?
Yeah, so this is the fun. I find this the funniest thing, but eating cheeseburgers, online videos or videos, like it is wild the amount of views those have racked up. Just millions of views, right? Just insane of just pouring chili on a cheeseburger and just eating it in front of people. And like for me, like I don't understand watching someone chow down on a burger, just like, yeah, dude, get it. But it works. It's so funny to actually have to live something that you necessarily, you don't consume yourself. Like I don't really necessarily enjoy watching someone eat. But there's this whole like subsection of people who can't wait for my partner or for myself to, eat another burger, So it's like, so, to that, no, I mean, but when you think about it, I mean, let's take a step back and without the self-awareness, what is the best possible outcome for our product and what is the best product for that? And it's really chili on a cheeseburger is like the staple. Like, I mean, if you come to New Mexico, a green chili cheeseburger, that is it. That's, yes, we have great Mexican food, but it really is a green chili cheeseburger that is what sets us apart. And it's made its way all the way to New York. Like the hottest, burger restaurant in New York is called Gotham City Burger Club. He started following us on Instagram, and then I noticed who he was because uh, you know, they blew up and I've heard about him. He was putting green chili on his burgers. And so I sent it to him and then he put it on his burgers. And so it's just kind of cool to think of like, what is the best possible application of your product and do that, lean into that. And for us, it really is like pouring our product on a burger. And so that's a lot of fun when you can think of the best possible outcome, but also have a lot of fun with it. And your customers have a lot of fun with it too. So I really think my marketing for 2025 is just traveling around America, eating burgers at different places with her product.
I was just going to say, this kind of reminds me of, the Boss Sports guy. He does, the pizza reviews.
Yeah.
It reminds me kind of like that. It's like, I'm sure compared to some of his other marketing stuff, it's super low budget. One guy
Yeah,
with a camera just kind of follows him around. But the
yeah,
following that that gets and the engagement that it drives, I
right.
think there was one before Christmas of a pizza store that was shutting down. And I
Mm,
think like overnight they raised, multiple seven figures in funding just because
wow,
he shared a good review. And it sounds
wow.
like similar here, right?
Yeah, I think you said something that I truly believe in. I've had my work on ESPN, Discovery Channel, been featured by, you know, the Outdoor Channel in Paris, all these things, right? Nice cameras, latest, greatest equipment. But really, when I just go out to the farm with my partner and I just use my phone, that performs so well. I do believe there's we do studio creative for our products. If you go on our website and go to product pages, we have nice, highly produced videos that showcase it being poured out onto a product. I think that's important to see. But a lot of times when it comes to the marketing side, I just tell people to use their phone, And I think there's something too, like from a storytelling perspective, like when you strip down everything, who are you? Who are you? With all the bells and no bells and whistles, who are you at the end of the day? And there is something that's really like convicting when especially when you know you're going to get millions of views on a video. You just got to talk to that person. You know, you got to share your true convictions about your product. And I find that pretty inspiring. It feels like an old storyteller. You're just, no bells and whistles. This is who we are. This is what we do. And people really genuinely appreciate it.
Yeah, I
They just
think
crave that. And I think it's going to
it's
increase.
authenticity, right?
It is. It is. And it's going to increase. I don't know where we're heading with all the AI. What is the thing Meta tried to roll out and then wrote back in real quick? It was their AI profiles.
Yeah, the fake. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty wild. And this technology is, not that far away. I mean, we're looking at months. We're not talking about like a year, right? We're talking about months. And so, I mean, even right now, I mean, you and I could create podcasts for years based on avatars we could create for ourselves. So, I don't know if we're going to have to hold up newspapers to show how valid we are in the future, but it's kind of interesting. So, I think the more that companies can lean into that, the more success they're going to have. Because I do think I don't want to say there's two different Shopify companies or e-commerce companies, but you definitely have one that's just product driven. No one wants to be the face of it. It's just product driven, and that's good. I'm not saying anything wrong with that. Like, I also wish I could just find something that could be faceless and just be like cash flow. That'd be great. Like, hats off to everyone who does that. But I think if you are a brand that is looking to sort of be around, like if you are trying to create maybe a legacy brand, then you kind of need to lean into some of these strategies that are going to help your overall LTV.
for sure. I just want to talk a bit because I know we've got to wrap up soon. Something you shared, I think over the past couple of weeks on socials was the
Mhm.
sweepstakes kind of setup and
Oh
success
yeah,
that you've
yeah.
had there. Can you just kind of explain what you've done there and the kind of results that you've seen?
Yes, definitely. At Commerce Roundtable last year, shared sweepstakes was giving away $100,000 giveaway, and there was like 400 or 500 brands that were kind of put into the giveaway, and we won. So we won this opportunity at no cost to us to do $100,000 shared sweeps giveaway. So it was really a great opportunity because I was looking at doing shared sweeps, throughout the year, but I'd never experienced anything like it. So I had some hesitations. I just didn't know. But what happened is we came up with this concept of $100,000 brand new GMC pickup truck. We just tried to think of something that our audience would want. And it's very hard to do actually. I mean, $100,000 is like, what do you really buy with that? And so we didn't launch it on we didn't launch it right away. I kind of wanted to save it for December. So for Black Friday, we didn't launch it. We kind of kept this in our pocket for a few reasons. I saw this as an opportunity to this giveaway would end December 31st. So I was like, oh, that Q5, that week after Christmas could be really valuable. This could be a good opportunity. So when we launched it at the 1st of December, I mean, it really gained a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of education that you have to do around this. So I made a very funny, ad about I was eating a burger, funny enough, but I just explained it, hey, this is a shared sweepstakes. It's with other brands. If you, make a purchase, it equals an entry, and, just kind of made it as educational as possible, but also have a little bit of fun with it. And our customers got behind it. The new customer acquisition behind it as well did really well. And what had happened is, and forgive me if I know I posted these numbers publicly, but I think our revenue was up 27%, and I think our Facebook ads spend was down 30%. It was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a new customer acquisition machine. This was fun. And ads were converting like at $3 conversion, $5 conversion. And so like on the paid ad side, like these ads converted extremely well. It got new people into the brand, and it really kind of helped us carry in that Q5 where we've always historically seen a dip. I mean, it's just really hard, right? To kind of do something in that last week, because people are kind of spent. I know I'm spent, like everyone's just kind of financially spent. So what we did is we tripled the entries that last week. So, if you bought this, you would get 3x the entries. And so that was an opportunity for us to provide more value, and also, increase opportunity for people to win. So the winners, I think, announced the 15th of January. So we'll see if it's a Rush Chili customer. And but it was fun. I definitely would do it again next year or this year. And looking at the cost, what it would cost us had we ran that with them, if we would have paid out of pocket, it would have cost us 22,000, which is extremely worth it because I don't know the exact. I know I wrote about it, but the exact number on the Facebook ads that we didn't spend on this year, it's been crazy efficient. I've never seen a campaign, I'll say this point blank, like there's never been a campaign that's been more efficient than a giveaway campaign. And I don't know if we could like repeat that right again with another giveaway. Be interesting to see. Might be something that we keep for December's, but I did find it very fascinating. And I think what's really cool that at the end of the day, as a marketer, we try a lot of different things, and this was kind of a fun thing that you only hear of like big brands doing. So for kind of a smaller, brand in the scheme of things, to be able to run a program like this at a very efficient cost was really cool.
Okay. And I think you can get some great organic content out of that. Yeah. Today is the 14th of
Oh,
January, so tomorrow's kind of announcement and then delivery
yeah,
of the truck if that's what they get.
yeah. It'd be interesting. I wonder what people will take, 100K or a new truck. So yeah,
What would you
I
take
don't know
out of
what you have
interest?
to pay, huh?
What would you take out of interest?
I'd have to look at the tax situation.
That's a boring answer.
Yeah, I know. Buy the
So,
cash.
okay, I like that one. So, do you recommend this? I know you said you were kind of unsure about a regular basis. Is this maybe a thing that you do maybe every Q5 to get that kind of bump in?
Yeah, or Q1. I think Q1 is very slow. So if you can kind of amp up sales Q1, I think that's a great opportunity as well. I think every business is different. So whenever it makes sense for that business, you know, do that. I mean, supplements are crushing right now, right? Any health wellness Q1 it does well. So if it kind of maybe it's a Q3 thing for health and wellness, right? So it depends on your industry, but it was a lot of fun, a lot of customer engagement. Make sure your customer service team is ready, but I definitely think it brings a lot of fun energy to the brand.
No, I love it. Final question on the kind of business. You've mentioned a potential kind of exit for Fresh Chili. Can you just talk
Yeah,
about what your kind of game plan is over the next few years and what level you're hoping to get to with that?
yeah, definitely. So this is, last year was the first year we were profitable. And that was very like, again, when you're building a manufacturing facility and having to, you know, take out loans, and we haven't taken in, we haven't taken on any investors, so it's like everything's just been kind of self-financed or self reinvested into the business, and I've known that going into it. So it would be nice over the next, 1 to 2 years to take home some healthy profits. I think that's, would be great. because we have taken out loans and we need to pay them down and pay them off, and which I think that we actually will achieve this year. So it would be nice to kind of from the back end of the business just be healthy business and get it, because investors, when they're looking at a business, I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you're generating in revenue if you're not like profitable, right? So like I think we also have to kind of get to a situation where we do look good to a potential investment firm, but also be financially healthy for us as well internally. That gives us the flexibility to do two things. It gives us the flexibility to not necessarily need to exit or need to sell the business or bring on a strategic partner. It just allows us to grow like we've been growing, just very steady, and just get to a very healthy place with the business. I think our current plant can do 15 million, and its current capacity could do 15 million a year, maybe 20 if we did the tweaks. So the reality of it is we only have a year or two before we have to make some bigger decisions as far as like reinvesting those profits back up into the business to grow past 20 million. Or do we find a strategic partner who maybe has a retail vision for ourselves? Because that is a game I do not know, I have no expertise in, and I will lose a lot of money if I try to play that game at this point, right? So we are going to continue to stay in our lane with DTC and just grow. And so, I believe internally, like, 15 to 20 million, then you have some PE firms that probably start kind of looking at you. And I'm not saying that is the goal necessarily. I do have a dream of telling this story within our region. It's the oldest story in America. It's not written about in history books. And there's something that I think there's more to tell here. We're actually the number one producer of pecans in the world, the number one producer of onions in America. And in addition to being the chili capital of the world. So I really could see us developing a holistic $100 million food company over the course of my lifetime, right? If that's the decision we try to just continue on. But I think if there was a partner that, had a vision for us in retail, that would definitely, I think we would have to really genuinely look at that, because, they get you to 50 to 100 million pretty quick. We saw it with Moy's, with Native, right? I mean, 100 million to buy that deodorant. I mean, I don't really know what their numbers are now, but when you're in every Target and every CVS and, pharmacy store, it goes pretty fast. Someone who has the right vision, but I think that partner would also hopefully would want to tell the story of our region as well, and hopefully kind of see what we have here. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. We've had some really interesting talks with some really big brands and big names, and I think the feedback we've gotten is like, let's talk when you're at 20 million. So that's where
So
we're
there's
at
a,
today.
so there's a lot of kind of big stuff in the pipeline, but it's, full steam ahead. Let's get to
Hmm.
15, 20 mil in the next, 2, 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, like on the ad efficiency side, we could be there, but it's the manufacturing side that's kind of holding the brand back at the moment. So that was a big part of our conversation this past week when we got together, is the decisions we have to make. Do we want to outsource shipping so we can focus on manufacturing? Do we want to take that warehouse space that we would have if we outsource shipping to expand manufacturing? So a lot of fun conversations, and kind of like, how do we kind of take the brand to the next level? It's fun to be building. I do get a lot of joy from building. So it's like I said, it's been the hardest thing I've done in a business sense. And but I'm extremely grateful. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Sure. Okay. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. It's been great kind
Yeah,
of walking through your story and where you're at today and where you're going next. If
thank you.
anyone wants to kind of follow along, where can they find you?
Yeah, at Chris Ling Social. So just any of the platforms, you can find me there.
Okay, so LinkedIn and Twitter are the two I follow you on. And
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Well, Chris, thanks again. Appreciate you coming on and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.